Welcome back to Fledgling Eagle. Today we've got a story filled with unexpected turns. The U.S. Navy intercepted a cargo ship linked to Venezuela's President Maduro, and it wasn't carrying the electronics it was supposed to. Instead, the ship was loaded with millions in illegal gold, priceless artifacts, and cash. This operation represents a major setback for Maduro's regime. Let's dive in. The Angelos Ship caught red-handed in the Caribbean. In a bold operation in the Caribbean, the U.S. Navy intercepted the Angelos, a cargo vessel believed to have ties to the Venezuelan government. The ship had recently left La Guaira port in Venezuela, a well-known hub for global shipping, and was initially reported to be transporting a standard load of electronics such as televisions, phones, and computer parts. However, U.S. intelligence had been closely monitoring suspicious maritime routes and intercepted communications, indicating that the Angelos was involved in far more illicit activities. After tracking the vessel for several days, Navy forces moved in, intercepting it just outside Caribbean waters. Upon boarding, authorities discovered a massive smuggling ring hidden beneath what seemed to be legitimate cargo. The Angelos was found to be carrying millions of dollars worth of gold bars, some marked with symbols linking them directly to Venezuela's state-controlled gold reserves. In addition to the gold, the ship was packed with invaluable historical artifacts, many of which were suspected to have been stolen from museums and private collections across Latin America. The ship also contained large amounts of cash, most of it in U.S. dollars, likely tied to a broader money laundering scheme. Authorities believe the ship was part of an illicit trade network linked to various corrupt organizations, some with direct connections to the Venezuelan government. This operation has raised concerns about illegal gold mining, the trafficking of cultural treasures, and the role of state actors in enabling these illegal activities. The interception sheds light on the ongoing battle against organized crime in the region and has drawn attention to the increasingly infamous ports of Venezuela, which are known to serve as entry points for illicit goods. The swift response by the U.S. Navy in seizing the Angelos and its cargo sends a clear message to those operating within the shadows of Caribbean trade routes. International law enforcement is closely monitoring such illegal operations. What did they find on the ship? When U.S. military forces boarded the Angelos, they expected to find a routine shipment of electronics, items like smartphones, televisions, and computers. However, what they uncovered was far from ordinary. Instead of the expected tech goods, the ship was carrying a massive and highly illegal cargo, an enormous stash of contraband that included vast amounts of gold bars, piles of cash, and priceless cultural artifacts. These illicit items were hidden beneath layers of seemingly legitimate merchandise, making it difficult to detect them at first glance. The gold alone was valued at a staggering $350 million. Some of the bars even bore distinctive markings that linked them to Venezuelan state-owned mining operations. Authorities believe that this gold had been illegally extracted from Venezuelan mines and smuggled out of the country, avoiding official export channels and bypassing customs controls. Along with the gold, the ship was also carrying millions in both U.S. dollars and euros, further raising suspicions that the Angelos was involved in laundering the proceeds of illicit activities. The scale of the operation became evident, as it was clear that this was not just a small-time smuggling operation, but part of a much larger criminal enterprise. The cash found aboard the ship was believed to have come from various illegal sources, including Venezuela's oil revenues, which have long been rumored to flow through unofficial routes to avoid international sanctions. This added another layer of complexity to the situation, as it suggested that the smuggling operation was not only about transporting physical goods, but also about moving illicit financial assets across borders. It is believed that the operation was part of a larger money laundering network, funneling funds through the Caribbean and into different financial systems around the world. In addition to the gold and cash, the Angelos was also carrying a significant number of cultural artifacts, many of which were stolen from Venezuela's museums and private collections. These artifacts included ancient sculptures, priceless historical objects, and items that were integral to the country's rich cultural heritage. Authorities are now working closely with international organizations to trace the origins of these items and return them to their rightful owners, ensuring that they are preserved and protected for future generations. The discovery of this enormous hidden cache underscored the scale of the illegal trade networks operating within the Caribbean and South America. It also raised serious concerns about the involvement of government officials and organized crime groups who may have facilitated these operations. The Angelos was not just a ship carrying contraband. It was a symbol of the dark underworld that continues to thrive in the region, despite international efforts to combat it. How did the U.S. Navy pull it off? The operation to intercept the Angelos was a remarkable success and a testament to the precision and expertise of the U.S. Navy. Months of careful intelligence gathering, surveillance, and strategic planning went into executing this high-risk mission, which aimed to stop the vessel before it could complete its illegal journey. The mission was not only about intercepting the Angelos, but also about sending a powerful message to those involved in illicit activities across the Caribbean. The operation began with a highly coordinated effort among several branches of the military. 4 assault boats were launched rapidly from a nearby Navy ship, each manned by elite personnel specifically trained for such high-stakes missions. These special forces had the necessary skills to board the ship quickly, overtake the crew, and secure the vessel. Meanwhile, a combat helicopter, equipped with advanced surveillance technology, hovered overhead, tracking the Angelos's movements from above. This helicopter acted as both an eye in the sky and a tactical command center, providing real-time updates to the Navy's forces on the ground. As the Angelos tried to flee, attempting evasive maneuvers, the Navy's response was both quick and overwhelming. Despite their best efforts to escape, the crew of the Angelos found themselves outmatched by the Navy's tactical superiority. The Navy's forces closed in rapidly, boarding the vessel and taking control with precision. In a matter of hours, the operation was successfully concluded, with the ship fully secured and its illegal activities halted. In addition to securing the ship, U.S. forces detained the crew and arrested 2 Venezuelan soldiers who were reportedly on board to provide security for the shipment. The presence of these soldiers raised serious concerns about the involvement of the Venezuelan government in the operation, adding another layer of complexity to an already sensitive situation. The mission's success was the result of months of strategic surveillance, expert intelligence analysis, and seamless cooperation between military units. By disrupting this major smuggling operation, the U.S. Navy not only prevented a significant illegal shipment, but also reinforced its position as a formidable force in the region. The operation served as a clear warning to criminal networks across the Caribbean. The U.S. Navy is vigilant, and when the situation demands, it will act decisively to protect international law and security. The hidden treasure, a shocking discovery. When U.S. forces boarded the Angelos, they expected to find a routine load of commercial electronics, such as computers, phones, and televisions. However, what they uncovered was far more shocking and valuable than anyone could have imagined. Instead of the anticipated tech products, the containers were packed with a hidden stash of illicit items, including gold bars, bundles of cash, and invaluable historical artifacts. The gold alone was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, but the real surprise came when they discovered stolen cultural treasures being smuggled out of Venezuela. These priceless artifacts, including ancient statues, ceremonial objects, and relics from pre-Columbian civilizations, were cleverly concealed among the cargo. Experts believe these items were likely intended for the international black market, where they would fetch enormous prices from collectors and illicit traders. The total value of the cargo exceeded $500 million, an extraordinary sum that raised alarms about the scale of the smuggling operation. The Angelos was headed for Central America, a significant hub for illegal shipments in the region. From there, it was to proceed to Europe, a notorious destination for laundering stolen goods and assets. This well-established route is often used to smuggle illicit wealth, including Venezuela's state-controlled resources like gold and artifacts, bypassing international sanctions and the global financial system. The discovery of this hidden treasure underscored the vast extent of the illegal trade, as well as the role organized crime groups and corrupt officials were playing in exploiting Venezuela's resources. The Angelos was just one of many vessels involved in secretly transporting wealth out of the country, but its interception has disrupted these operations and triggered a broader investigation into the smuggling networks and their international links. The international impact and reactions. The capture of the Angelos sent shockwaves around the world, with governments, international organizations, and the media reacting swiftly. For the U.S., the operation was seen as a crucial step in their ongoing efforts to dismantle the illegal activities associated with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's regime. This wasn't just about halting a single smuggling operation. It was part of a broader initiative to target the regime's illicit financial dealings, which have been tied to illegal gold mining, oil smuggling, and money laundering. The seizure of the Angelos sent a powerful message that state-sponsored corruption and illegal trade would not go unchecked. The U.S. Navy's success was hailed by many as a triumph for international law enforcement and a testament to the U.S. commitment to combating global smuggling networks. However, the operation also sparked fierce opposition from Venezuela, where President Maduro and his officials accused the U.S. of imperial aggression. Maduro's government argued that the Navy's interception was a clear violation of Venezuela's sovereignty, asserting that the country had the right to control its own maritime routes and safeguard its economic interests. Venezuelan officials swiftly condemned the operation, framing it as part of a larger U.S. strategy to destabilize Venezuela and undermine its government. The Maduro administration rejected allegations of illegal activities, claiming that the Angelos was simply transporting legitimate cargo. This response led to a diplomatic clash between the two nations, further intensifying the divide between Venezuela and the U.S. On the international stage, the operation raised broader concerns about its impact on global trade and security. Some countries voiced support for the U.S., emphasizing the need to tackle transnational crime and protect cultural heritage from theft and illegal trafficking. Meanwhile, others, particularly in Latin America, exercised caution, wary of the potential for heightened tensions between the U.S. and Venezuela, which could destabilize the region. The global response to this event highlights the complexities of international law enforcement, particularly when it intersects with political and economic power struggles. The Angelos incident has brought renewed attention to Venezuela's illegal trade networks and their role in financing the country's government, prompting further investigations into how wealth is being funneled out of Venezuela and into the global black market. Political fallout. Is Maduro losing his grip? The interception of the Angelos occurred at a time when President Nicolas Maduro's government was already under increasing domestic and international pressure. The operation itself served as a clear sign of the growing scrutiny from the U.S. and other global actors aiming to curb Venezuela's illicit activities, which have long funded the regime. The illegal funds discovered on the Angelos, including gold, cash, and smuggled artifacts, exposed the deep-rooted corruption within the government and highlighted the extent to which Maduro's administration is willing to bypass international sanctions to maintain power. The Angelos incident wasn't an isolated event. It added to a growing body of evidence revealing Venezuela's involvement in illicit trade, money laundering, and the exploitation of its natural resources. These revelations have further damaged Maduro's international reputation, already tarnished by accusations of human rights abuses and authoritarian governance. As evidence of corruption continues to mount, the international community is calling for tougher actions, such as stricter sanctions, which have placed even greater strain on Venezuela's ailing economy. In the aftermath of the Angelos operation, Venezuela's political landscape became even more volatile. Maduro's inner circle began to fracture as several high-ranking advisors and ministers resigned, citing his increasingly autocratic leadership and lack of transparency. Many of these former loyalists voiced concerns that Maduro was sidelining his government, consolidating power within a small, trusted group, which led to infighting and growing discontent among the ruling elite. The cracks in Maduro's leadership raised serious questions about the future of his regime. With key advisors and military figures distancing themselves from the president, the likelihood of a leadership vacuum or internal power struggle grew. This internal instability, combined with rising external pressures, suggests that Maduro's hold on power may be weakening. If Maduro continues to alienate those around him, it remains uncertain how long he can maintain control. The erosion of support within his own ranks, along with increasing international isolation, paints a picture of a regime on unstable footing. While Maduro still has loyal supporters, particularly within the military, the fallout from the Angelos incident underscores the growing challenges he faces in retaining his grip on power. The crucial question is whether the fractures in his leadership and mounting pressure from abroad will eventually lead to his downfall. What's next for Venezuela? As the world watches the aftermath of the Angelos interception, the U.S. operation has already set the stage for heightened political tensions in the region. While the U.S. action has been praised by many for disrupting illicit activities, it has drawn sharp condemnation from Venezuela's allies, such as Russia and China, who view it as an infringement on Venezuela's sovereignty and an act of imperial aggression. These nations, which have provided political and economic backing for Maduro's government, have further strained relations with the U.S., deepening geopolitical tensions in Latin America. However, the greatest challenge for Venezuela lies within its own borders. The political turmoil that has been brewing for years seems to be reaching a breaking point. Maduro's government is increasingly divided, with many key members of his inner circle resigning or publicly distancing themselves from him. The fragmentation of his political base, along with growing dissatisfaction among the population due to worsening economic conditions, signals a period of intensifying instability. As the pressure mounts, the likelihood of a political crisis or a shift in leadership increases. If Maduro's grip on power continues to weaken, the consequences could extend beyond Venezuela, affecting the entire region. A collapse of Venezuela's political and economic systems could trigger further mass migration, exacerbating the refugee crisis already affecting neighboring countries like Colombia and Brazil. Moreover, Venezuela's increasing isolation from the international community, coupled with the ongoing economic collapse, hyperinflation, and shortages of essential goods, will likely worsen the living conditions for its citizens, potentially sparking widespread unrest and protests. The future of Venezuela depends on several key factors. First, whether Maduro can maintain control despite the growing fractures in his administration. Second, whether the international community, including regional powers like the U.S. and Colombia, will increase pressure or isolation efforts. And finally, whether the ongoing economic crisis, driven by the collapse of the oil industry, currency devaluation, and sanctions, continues to shape the country's trajectory. The ultimate question is whether Maduro's regime can withstand the mounting internal and external pressure, or if Venezuela will witness a dramatic shift in leadership that could pave the way for a new chapter in its tumultuous history. The Angelos incident reveals just how far Maduro's regime is willing to go in its efforts to bypass international sanctions, while the U.S. remains resolute in its mission to stop them. But this is merely the beginning. As the pressure on Venezuela continues to mount, expect even more twists and turns ahead. The situation is far from settled, and the intensity is only set to increase. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share if you want to stay informed on this developing story and more captivating insights. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.